Hello everyone. Welcome to video number 2 of today. Yes, indeed, video number 2. Today we will talk about Franz Xavier Hohenleiter. Yet another German criminal. He was born in Rommelsried in 1788 and was a notorious German criminal. As a leader of a band of robbers, he was active between 1817 and 1819 in the border regions of the Kingdom of Württemberg, the Grand Duchy of Baden, and the Principality of Hohenzollern-Simmeringen. Oh, and this outlaw was killed by a lightning strike, which is just splendid. The period towards the end of and immediately after the Napoleonic Wars resulted in the uprooting of a large number of people, mostly peasants, combined with the reorganization of the southern Germany's political map, the mediatization of smaller, formerly independent territories, which in some cases changed hands several times before being incorporated into the larger entities, the Kingdom of Württemberg, the Grand Duchy of Baden, the Kingdom of Bavaria, the Principality of Hohenzollern-Simmeringen, and the Principality of Hohenzollern-Hechingen, led to a period of unstable administration of these territories. Furthermore, the year without a summer in 1816 caused famine, an increase in unrest, vagrancy, begging, robbery, and the first of large-scale German immigration to the United States. Early life. You'll ask, you can have this one, I'll do the rest. Franz Xavier Hohenleiter was born to impoverished herders in Rommelsried, now part of the municipality of Kotzenhausen in the district of Augsburg, Bavaria. His father had been a soldier and became a herder after getting married. The family had a bad reputation and had been convicted of theft. As a child, Franz Xavier Hohenleiter worked as a shepherd boy, but managed to get one winter of schooling where he learned to read printed texts. Although with difficulties and writing his own name, in 1813 he signed up with the Bavarian army in Augsburg, only to desert after 8 days, when he moved into the territory controlled by the Austrian Empire, knowing that Austria would not extradite deserters. During the following years, he led a restless life. He wandered about in Austria, Switzerland, Bavaria, Baden, and Sigmaringen, and Württemberg, begging or finding casual work as a farmhand. His later appearances. Xavier Hohenleiter is reported to have been over 6 feet tall. His body was muscular, and his posture and gait revealed the former soldier. His face was sun-tanned, and he had very, very white teeth. His face was engulfed by thick sideburns and a goatee. His hair was pitch black, dangling down in braids. Hence his nickname, Schwarz, Very, Black Xavier. He also wore finely engraved earrings. The gang. Xavier Hohenleiter was the leader of a gang of outlaws whose number fluctuated over time. Its core, however, consisted of a number of persons, both male and female. Maria Josefa Tochtermann, called der Gunsberger Seffi, or Gunsberg Sef, born at Eppenshofen, now part of the municipality of Altenmunster, was the common law wife of Xavier Hohenleiter. Together they had a son, Xavier Hohenleiter's brother, Ulrich, called der Early, 17 years old at the time of his arrest, had previously been a member of the Rosenberg gang, also active in Upper Swabia during the same period, and was partner to Agatha Gebhardt, whose nickname was Schwarzy Agath, Black Agatha in English. She was part of a trio of women called Dreckete Party or Dirty Party. Michael Friedrich Ludwig Klump, der Schönfritz, Handsome Fritz, was born in 1790 in Biesenfeld and was associated with Teresa Jepler, born in the Austrian coastal city of Trieste in 1788. Joseph Anton Jung, called Der Kondier, the peddler, due to his parents having been traveling merchants from what was to become the Rhine province, and Crescentia Totemann, called Der Gunsberger Krisen, or Grunsberg Krenzen, sister of Maria Josepha Tochtermann, formed another couple within the gang. She was also part of the Dreckete Party, or the Dirty Party, as was Crescentia Gebhardt, nicknamed... Jesus, these are a lot of gang members. There's so many to keep count. I count at least 20. Jesus. Various other vagrants were part of the gang, each for a short period of time before relocating and getting arrested or joining other criminal gangs. The crimes perpetrated by Hohenleiter and his gang were mostly arson, burglary, robbery, extortion, and theft. They predominantly targeted isolated farms, small holdings, hamlets, mills. Their loot mostly consisting of food, animals, money, and clothes. After committing crimes, Hohenleiter and his companions retreated into the dense woods where they had a base near Ostricht, occasionally resurfacing at disreputable country inns. The first reported incidents attributed to Hohenleiter and his gang was the torching of a mill close to the village of Betzenweiler on the 18th of December, 1817. The same night, they also attempted to burgle the mayor of Neufra's house. However, they were disrupted and left without any loot. During 1880, they committed several burglaries in the hamlets of Otterweiler and Waldburen, both in the vicinity of Ostrich, as well as in Bellemont, robbing the meat of a whole pig closed to the value of 10 guldens and more than 10 liters of brandy, 70 pounds of lard, bread worth 79 guldens. In 1880, the gang also stole a pig weighing 300 weight from an isolated farmstead near Offingen. During this robbery, Firearms were used to scare off the farmer who wanted to intervene and prevent the loss of the pig. A few days later, the gang raided an isolated farm in Argenharderhof in the vicinity of Tentnang in order to steal money from an old widow who was rumored to be in the possession of 500 guldens. They threatened to shoot the woman. They threatened the woman to shoot her if she would not surrender the money. This having no effect, they began to torture the victim by cutting first her clothes with a knife and then began beating her, whereupon the woman fainted. The gang then proceeded to clear the house of all movable and easily to carry items, mostly food, brandy, beddings, and linen, worth more than 400 guldens. Of actual money, they only found the 30 Reichsthalter and 2 guldens. The victim was then bound and shoved through a trapdoor into the cellar. The victim, on hearing that the robbers were departing, the woman managed to escape, only to be caught by 2 members of the gang who had stayed behind to guard the retreat of the others, and once more assaulted, bound, and locked up in the cellar. Even though the victim freed herself again and managed to alert neighbors of the robbery, the ordeal seemed to have been too much for her, so that she died 3 months later in the autumn of 1880. In the autumn of 1880, the gang perpetuated a robbery, which was later called the theft of the ox and boots. A farmer had harassed an ox and a horse to his cart, harnessed an ox and horse to his cart, and left them at the edge of a forest whilst trying to retrieve wood from the forest. Hohenleiter and Merkel, noticing the unguarded team, untied the ox and, having led it away some distance, pulled boots over the hooves of the animal, not to leave any traces behind. In 1819, the gang committed several more burglaries at Hüttenrute, where the booty was 400 weights of meat worth 53 guldens, and at Wendenrut, where they managed to steal goods to the value of 140 guldens, 500 weights of meat, flour, lard, and a tin plate. During a burglary in Ilwagen, the gang's booty was 15 pounds of cheese, bread, brandy, a tablecloth, and a pair of boots. This summary is not exhaustive and only exemplary of the criminal acts perpetuated by Schwazi Verer and his partners in crime. Evil Ash, what are you doing? Nothing. I'm not doing anything. Just sitting in this tree. Are we ever going to get to these 2 getting arrested and their deaths? Yes, Evil Ash, we just got there. In the early months of 1819, the Laubach mill, a mill near Ostrich, had been plagued 6 times by Hohenleiter and his gang. Each time they were trying to break in order to get provisioned with food. After unsuccessfully trying to prevent burglaries by patrolling the area, foresters from Königswald changed tactics and laid an ambush at the mill in order to catch Hohenleiter and his gang. On April 16, 1819, Very and his gang attempted another robbery at the mill, during which they were caught in the act by the foresters. The criminals first escaped into the woods, but were pursued by the foresters. Later on, the foresters surprised the gang, who were having a meal in the forest, and after some shots were fired, arrested most of them, while some managed to flee, only to be arrested by a Baden patrol 3 days later, who incarcerated the lot of them. Only Josef Anton Jung, the peddler, managed to escape and join the Rosenberger gang. The arrested persons were taken to Biberach and imprisoned at various locations within the city. Some were held at the White Tower, whereas others were taken to the so-called Seelhaus, an old building originally owned by Bugens, then in the possession of the city, which had iron-barred windows on the ground floor. Xavier Hohenleiter, however, was incarcerated in the Inhingen Tower, together with some of the women in his gang. Hohenleiter was locked up in a cell with a suspect from another band of robbers. Both were bound up in heavy chains. The chains led through a hole in the wall to a chimney upon which they were securely fastened. 4 of Hohenleiter's companions managed to escape from captivity, only to be caught after 4 weeks on the run near Kaibeleg. In the Allgäu, Franz Merkel remained a fugitive from the law for some considerable time and was only arrested again in 1823 in Baden. Investigations by the authorities commenced in May 1819 and lasted until 1821. Xaver Hohenleiter, however, never stood trial. On the evening of July the 20th, 1819, a huge thunderstorm moved over Biberach. Lightning struck the Ingen Tower. When the doors of the prison were opened, thick smoke billowed out of the cell where Hohenleiter was held, and Xavier Hohenleiter was found dead on his pallet, having been struck by lightning. When his body was carried outside, his clothes caught fire. Any attempts to revive him proved futile, as his injuries were too severe. The right side of his chest, down to his loins, were entirely burnt. The inner side of his right upper arm was torn up, and the skin from his elbow down to his hand had completely disappeared. An investigation consequently carried out to determine the cause of death of the arrest and concluded that lightning first struck the weather vane, smashed the roof trusses top of the chimney, and went down the chimney chase, shattering the fireplaces on the top and 3rd floor without harming any of the inmates imprisoned there. However, it struck Hohenleiter with full force, the iron chain functioning as a conductor. The body of Xavier Hohenleiter was buried in the cemetery of the poorhouse on July 21st, 1819. The grave has since been leveled. Fate of the other gang members. Pretty much the rest of the gang members died. They're all dead. But one suffering the worst kind of death of all time by contracting tuberculosis and dying in agony whilst awaiting trial. Legacy. Xavier Hohenleiter and his gang were the last representatives of banditry in Upper Swabia, so widespread and common during the ancient regime. Literature. There are many books, music, and other things as well. But yes, Hohenleiter, Franz Xavier Hohenleiter, died by a lightning strike. Evil Ash, stop that. That is a childish sound. I don't care if it's childish, it sounds funny. Weren't you set on fire? We don't talk about that. No. I was never set on fire. Yes, you were. I saw it. It was painful. But this will be it for today's video. If you liked today's video, please sure to like, subscribe. Well, feel free to like, subscribe, share with family and friends, and be sure to leave a comment in the comments section down below. We will see you all next Monday. You know what's interesting, Flash? And what is that? The fact that an outlaw died by lightning strike. What happens if you have metal attached to you? Especially big definition. You could. You think you can ground I guess not. See you all next Monday. And something called Let's Go Blues. That's an NHL team in St. Louis, Missouri, Scout. And it's amazing. Yes, yes they are. See you all next Monday, people.